Before we dive into this discussion, as an introduction about MED42, so MED42 is essentially an advanced AI technology built at M42 to power healthcare applications. In essence, it's a large language model which is trained on large volumes of clinical and medical information and data and evaluated on a very rigorous framework to ensure its accuracy for medical purposes. We've built several applications on top of MED42. Think about it as an engine that drives a lot of solutions for specific purposes. And today we are blessed to have an audience of M42 specialists, experts who've been using some of these solutions in their clinical practice. And we'd love to understand their insights and real-world experiences using MED42. Starting with Dr. Hadad, who's been part of the journey from day one onwards. Dr. Hadad, you've been around with us for a while, as part of this journey, not just using, but co-creating this with us. Could you walk us through your journey with MED42 in your practice, as well as a medical director?
Good morning, and thank you very much for the kind invitation, and thank you for your time to be here with us today. So the story started in 2023. I received a call from Dr. Maaz and his team saying that we created MED42. I told him, I'm a surgeon, what do I do with MED42? Can he help me in the OR or what? And he said, let me explain more to you. And they said, we created an LLM. I said, what's LLM? I'm a surgeon. So they explained to me what's a large language model. They explained to me the details. And I said, let's try it. So the best way is to try it. So we started the training. And they told me the way I remember that when you told me that we trained them and now it passed the USMLE with 60. But we will train them more and they will pass with the grade of 75. The way he was talking, he is training a physician. And that got my attention. We are training a physician to be with you all the time, help you with unlimited memory. And then we decided to start our journey together until the day we went to the Department of Health, trying to show them what we have done, the vision of M42, the vision of MED42. And the best way to do that, we had a patient, a real patient, with a very rare disease. It's called BRCA1. Basically, a female patient that had BRCA1, and these patients, they are very much liable to have breast cancer, uterine cancer, and she has a very strong family history. Now, it happened that this patient had obesity also. So we were in dilemma, which way we start. We start with the bariatric treating obesity, or we start by doing the hysterectomy. We have Malefi also, so with MED42, we put all the data and ask MED42, what do we do with this patient? And MED42 immediately answered, there is not enough data because it's a rare disease. But the next thing said, however, I noticed that this patient has metabolic syndrome, patient has poorly controlled type 2 diabetes, and looking at the literature, MED42 think that starting with bariatric surgery will increase the chances of having safer hysterectomy later on because the patient will lose the weight and diabetes will be more, and the chances of doing the surgery minimally invasive is higher. At this point, we just put the hat down. I said, this is what we want. So this is a fully trained physician with unlimited memory that can look in the literature in 10 seconds and tell you what's available. So this is the story. This is where we are right now.
Thank you, Dr. Hadad. It's always a pleasure to listen to that story. Moving on to Dr. Laith. Dr. Laith is a leading gastroenterologist in Abu Dhabi, and he's been at the forefront of trying to use MED42 in his clinical practice. Dr. Laith, could you walk us through how MED42 is helping you transform your clinical practice?
Thank you very much, Dr. Maaz, and thank you for the invitation and for choosing me to be one of the first early trial of MED42. So I think MED42, as Dr. Hadad has said, has changed the way we practice medicine. because it has replaced the traditional way of looking through the websites, medical journals, clinical data to try to find the evidence and decision-making tools to help us for healthcare of patients. I am lucky enough to witness two big revolutions in healthcare. First of all, if I take you back a decade or 2 decades before, there was replacement of the paperwork with the electronic medical records. And at that time, that was a revolution by itself. Yet, this did not solve the problem of trying to find the time to look for the resources, trying to figure out what's going on with the patients. Now we have this tool, which is the MED42, and again, I'm lucky to witness this and to be part of it. It has replaced the traditional fragmented way of collecting data. I'll give you an example. So last week, or I think 2 weeks ago, I was referred a patient from Dr. Haddad's team, surgical team, with Barrett's esophagus. And Barrett's esophagus, for those who don't know, is a precancerous condition which puts patients at risk of esophageal cancer, and they require surveillance frequently, more than the normal person. So traditionally, I would go into the medical journals, societies' websites, hospital database to try to find out what is the up-to-date surveillance guidelines. But using MED42 has saved me the time and effort. They give me, at a point of care, the latest surveillance guidelines, the biopsy protocol of how to take the biopsies and where to take the biopsies. Not only that, I think with MED42, it did help me to give patients education material. So I printed out educational materials to the patient about Barrett's esophagus, and patients more informed about the condition and the importance of surveillance. And this is just a simple example. So by saving time and effort, we can dedicate more time for communication, more time into looking after other patients. And MED42 is doing this and will continue to do this in the future, only to improve healthcare.
Thank you, Dr. Laith. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences and helping us move forward. Moving to Dr. Shweta. Dr. Shweta, you are the medical director of a laboratory and commercial director as well. Now, that practice is very different from the clinical practice that Dr. Laith and Dr. Hadad mentioned about. Can you share with us how MED42 is helping in the labs and the utilization of the labs as well?
To begin with, I would say when the clinicians are able to understand labs better, it makes our life better. So, if you look at the healthcare data, or the data being produced in the world, 30% comes from healthcare. And lab contributes a lot to that data. Even a small lab with a little digital pathology would contribute about 15 terabytes of data per year. And that's a lot of data for the clinicians. There's a lot of information coming for the clinicians. And if you look at healthcare, there are a lot of repetitive tasks, both clinical and administrative, and pathology is no exception. MED42 is like a co-pilot. It is there to assist the pathologist in supplementing their data, either through publications or medical records or textual data. The neat thing about MED42 is that it was programmed for healthcare. And that's very important to understand. So let me give you an example. Let's say if I want to understand whether a particular bug is resistant to erythromycin and what are the current guidelines. This app is basically connected to PubMed, unlike Google, which will pull up everything what's floating around in the internet. So the source of data is more scientific and it is much more reliable. Having said that, the exciting part of MED42 is also the implication in the paradigm of decision support in pathology. So if you're able to integrate it into the medical records, you're able to make a guidance, a very good care for the patient. It is a very guided approach, just like our Dr. Hadad and Dr. Laith said. It guides you to a very standard of care because it is able to monitor variables across a lot of parameters which the clinician cannot do. So how does it change? What MED42 is doing is changing the paradigm in the way we practice. That means right now, a pathologist will spend a lot of time to churn out a report, and that also most likely it'll not be perfect because I can't combine everything. It's impossible. So if this is integrated, it'll either create a very nice report or at least a high-level draft report which a pathologist can look at, and it just aids in a better clinical care.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta. Just going back to some of the conversations we've had in the past, I know each of you has at some point in our conversation mentioned that it takes a little bit of training and experience to be able to use MED42 or any AI solution appropriately for your use case. Right? And that use case varies as per your practice, right? So just to summarize, for the benefit of the audience, we've got a lot of doctors, practicing clinicians in the audience as well. So can you help us understand and comment on what would it take to prepare physicians and non-clinicians, doctors, pathologists, radiologists, to be able to adopt solutions like MED42 and AI to the best of its capabilities, and most importantly, use it safely?
For most of the people, artificial intelligence is like a black box, and including, people of our generation who are never trained, this is something very new concept to us. And in a study that was done, if you look, there's a good buy-in into artificial intelligence. Pathologists are positive about it. So when they did a survey, 36% found that it would not enhance their clinical skill, 26% said it'll erode their clinical skills, and 21% said it'll enhance their clinical skills. So the experience is varied. So I would say is the best thing is for most of the people to understand, forget that artificial intelligence, we aren't there where we are going to replace humans. We are still into augmented intelligence. What does that mean? It means it's here to support you. It's not still there to replace you. It's working in the background to support you. It's not working in a way to replace human beings. So what we really need to do is make sure we give them that comfort level. And secondly, they have concerns about ethical concerns. So if we are able to address those, and the most important thing is we should start having EPAs, which are entrustable professional activities. What that means is none of us are trained into artificial intelligence. If we are trained, we don't know how our competency should be done, that we are using the app properly. So if we have these EPAs, which could be a basic understanding of informatics, understanding, like Dr. Hadid said, what is large language model and how it was used to create this app, whether this app will work in your practice, and what is the critical understanding, whether it will work, and to understand the human is still in the loop. That's the basic thing. So I think have an open mind, have good trainings and competencies in the future. I think it'll be a very good success, Dr. Maaz.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta. Moving to Dr. Hadad. Go ahead.
If I add to this, I look at it, I always like to give examples. And AI right now, and it will be like the GPS. Who would drive without a GPS now? There are some people who drive without GPS. But GPS now will tell us if I want to go from here to Abu Dhabi, it will tell me the time, the best route, the weather condition, if there is any accidents, if there is any changes or reroute. So GPS of medicine right now is the AI, and it will be the AI. In general, we as a human being, we don't like change, we don't like new things, we try to fight it. But what did we do with GPS? We learn it slowly. Thank God in medicine, we have training, we have courses, we have already ethical consideration with that. So the best way to adopt it is to think about the GPS. You can think that I will reach Abu Dhabi in 1 hour and a half and there is nothing on the road, and it might be. But with the GPS, it will tell you with 99.9% what are the situations, where is the traffic jam, where are the accidents, what do you need to do when you will reach. What are the probabilities of reaching at that time if you use the GPS versus not using the GPS and depending on memory. So having somebody would look at all the variables of the road and give you the exact time, date, and condition to reach there, this is where precision medicine is going. And this is going with AI and MED42.
Thank you, Dr. Hadad. Thank you for bringing that element of behavior change into this conversation. Dr. Laith.
I will start possibly where Dr. Hadad has ended. I agree, any change will be faced with challenges. And we are lucky in M42 that we have a structured approach of how to integrate MED42 into clinical practice with the long-term vision of our leadership in M42. And as Dr. Maaz and Dr. Haddad and Dr. Shweta knows, we have been addressing all these challenges through 5 main steps. The first step, we are running regular educational courses and seminars. They're all CME accredited, run by, for example, Dr. Fatima and the team, to raise the awareness of MED42 and AI within the healthcare sector. And also to address the misconceptions about AI. For example, like my colleague said, it's not going to replace physicians. It will augment and will support decision making. Also, we are doing hands-on training. Dr. Maaz's team, I don't know whether here, Dr. Charo and Satish, they provide hands-on training. They are always on site in Healthpoint Hospital whenever we need any issue with MED42. And also, we are trying to integrate the MED42 into the healthcare system. And the key here is to find an area, a point of entry of AI into the healthcare. For example, speaking about endoscopy, we have AI enhanced endoscopy equipment in Healthpoint Hospital. So this does not replace the endoscopists, but it helps us to identify polyps, which is a precancerous lesions, with a high degree of precision, and also to measure the polyp and characterize the polyp. So these things are much needed in the healthcare, and this is where AI and MED42 will help. And the fourth point is, like Dr. Haddad said, addressing the ethical issue about AI, and having policy and guidelines about liability of AI is very, very important. And finally, is what we are doing is to have a continuous feedback from the end users to continue improve. And MED42 has changed several times, been upgraded every time. There is an upgrade to make it better and better and better based on the feedbacks that we're giving to the users.
Thank you, Dr. Laith, for structuring it so well. We've got less than 5 minutes left, so I'll run through a quick question to get your insights on. You've been using MED42 for some time as an expert user, and you've been experiencing the benefits of it in your clinic. Where do you see MED42 in the next 5 years as part of your clinic practice, as part of your clinic? Should we start with you?
So thank you for the question. As Dr. Laith said, what was done with M42, we didn't launch MED42 for everybody, and for those who doesn't know, there is part for the healthcare and part for the patients. So MED42 was launched, DOH got approval with the pilot study with 100 physicians to start using it. I think in 5 years, every one of us will walk and will have an assistant physician who is the final year in his residency that has a memory of all the literatures available in the history. And imagine the beauty of that. So I can have one click and say, what's the latest evidence on the management of obesity for a patient X? And that resident, fully trained, would accept no errors, will have all the memory that's of all the literatures, will let you know that according to the information that was given to me, I can tell you with 99 or 95 or 85% precision that the response to this treatment will be this outcome. Imagine that. You can tell the patient, with all this evidence, I can tell you myself, with my experience, with my assistant, who's the virtual guy, the MED42, I can tell you 95% you will reach to this point in time with this result. Can you imagine the beauty of that?
That would be impressive.
I think the next 5 years will be a game changer for MED42 and AI in general. The way I envisage it, there will be 3 areas where I think there will be some improvement. First of all, expanding the capability of AI and MED42. We will see more decision-making tools, like Dr. Haddad said, more of predictive analytic tools. They can predict the outcomes after a surgery. We will see more patients-directed support, for example, generating reports, generating individualized, personalized care per person, per patient. I think The other area that the AI will improve in the next 5 years will be to expand or deepen the integration with other healthcare systems. Dr. Shweta will mention about integrating MED42 into the lab records. We'll be able to pull the data from each patient from different resources to give you sort of a predictive tool and decision-making tool to help with the patient's care. And the area which I think I'm very excited about is the MED42 and AI will expand its footprint to reach global reach. And this will narrow the gap between developing and developed countries. Imagine in countries where you don't have access to medical resources like we have. MED42 with a one-point care will be able to give you the resources and help those doctors from different healthcare sectors to get the better treatment for their patients. And I think the next 5 years will be exciting, and I look forward to be part of this journey.
Thank you, Dr. Laith.
I do agree with all the panelists that the next 5 years would be exciting, and I would say is the clinical decision support. And it is a very promising tool for the lab so that the correct tests are ordered and there's a good correct test interpretation. Now, to just summarize, 70% of the decisions are made by the lab test. We all know that. And lab is unlike many years back, you just did routine. Now it's precision medicine. The patient will get routine tests, will get genomic tests, will get many tests. And then to put all these reports together in something which means something is very, very important. That is why I believe the clinical decision support system is very important for the next 5 years. And AI is the game changer. And the reason it's a game changer is because AI can monitor and the patterns over multiple variables which humans can't. And more so, it can take all this data back and improve itself. And the best thing is, unlike humans, it doesn't take it personally. So it goes and keeps on improving itself. So the way I look at it, in the next 5 years, MED42 will play a very important role in not only delivering a very quality healthcare, which is efficient because there will be correct utilization of tests, but in the end, it'll be better patient care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shweta, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the expert panelists. It's delightful to see that you see MED42 as an integral part of your practice. It's very reassuring for us. Thank you so much for your time.